Good afternoon, everyone, on this really chilly Tuesday. The good news is the forecast is the temps are supposed to be going up, and we're going to hope they're right this time. I'm Janelle Dobbins with the From the Land to Kansas program, which is part of the Kansas Department of Agriculture. KDA and K-State Research and Extension are excited for you to join us this year for our Farmers Market Direct-to-Consumer Virtual Workshop. We have a great week of activities planned for you. So as you know, today from noon to 1, we're going to be talking about food safety and meeting some of the faces from the Kansas Value Added Food Lab. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about meat and poultry regulations. And then on Thursday, we'll have people presenting about sales tax, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and the Electronic Benefit Transfer, or EBT. And then Friday is our morning of presentations. We have our keynote talking about how selling directly to consumers can increase your margins, grow your business, and reduce stress. We'll also be talking about COVID-19 related changes, the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program and how to make sure you're signed up for that, the From the Land to Kansas program and our central registration for Kansas farmers markets, and Double Up Food Bucks program overview. So thanks again for taking some time today to learn with us. But there's a couple of housekeeping items I want to review with you before we get started any further. One, as you may have noticed, we do have closed captioning turned on. If you would like it to be turned off, on the bottom of your screen, you should see either an option for more, and then you can choose live transcript, or you may just see the live transcript option. And on that, if you click on it, you can then pick to hide the closed captioning if you want. Also, during the presentation portion of our webinar, all of your participant microphones have been muted. So if you have a question during the presentation, you can just submit that question in the Q&A box and we will get that answered. Either you'll see the text pop up in the box, or most likely we'll probably answer it live at the end of the presentation. Submitted questions and comments will be monitored by KDA and K-State Research and Extension. At any time during the webinar, when asking a question, please include your name, city, farmers market, or business if applicable, so it makes it easier for us to make sure we're answering the question correctly for your area. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted online for all the participants. As much as possible, the presentations will be posted online. Also, if you're selling pet treats or live plants, we actually already have that information online. So we'll be posting on in our chat box the link to that direct link. You just scroll down when you go to that link, and under register now, you'll see that we have both handouts and a video, so you can learn more about both of those pet treats and live plant information. Finally, if you registered by February 8th and requested to receive copies of the regulations for farmers market direct to consumer sales or the food labeling, hopefully you've received those copies in the mail by now. Otherwise, if you registered after February 8th, those should be being mailed to you later this week. Or if you didn't mark it and you would like to receive those publications, please let us know. We'll put the information in the chat box about how to contact us. So now I'm going to turn it over to Londa Nwadike, who will talk about our speakers.
Great, thank you very much, Janelle. And yes, as Janelle said, my name is Londa Nwadike, and I am a state extension food safety specialist. And I work for both Kansas State University and the University of Missouri. I think there's a few people from Missouri that might be joining us. So before we before I start talking more about the presenters, we're going to do a quick poll. And so this will get everybody kind of going this morning, and I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll. So we've probably, some of you might have been doing a lot of Zoom sessions in the past year or so, and some of us maybe haven't done as many, but if you're interested and willing, we'd like to just learn more about what kind of products you're interested in selling. So what products you're interested in learning more about the regulations for. So, and you can select more than one. So you can click on, as many different products as you are, as you might be interested in selling. So we just want to find out more information so that when our speakers are presenting, that they can target their comments, more specifically towards what types of products you are actually selling. So, And we got a good number of people that are voting here. So we'll let just a few more people vote. And then I'll go ahead and share the results of the voting. But it's a good chance for us all to kind of engage and not feel like we're just sitting behind a computer screen, but that we're actually kind of engaging a little more. We really do miss the in-person sessions this year, but this is a good alternative on the cold weather and because of other situations, of course. So, all right, I think we're kind of slowing down here on the number of people voting. So I'm going to go ahead and end the polling. And so, wow, so we can see that, oh, I got to share the results, sorry. So hopefully you can see the results. So 91% of you are selling produce, 79% prepared foods such as jams, jellies, baked goods, 56% are selling eggs, 34% dairy products, and then the on-farm exemption of dairy products is 32%. So thank you very much for that. And let me see, I'm going to stop that result. And then I'm also going to ask another question here. So actually, before I ask this next question, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker, Adam Inman with the Kansas Department of Agriculture. He, I think his correct title is he's the Assistant Director of the Food Safety and Lodging Program at the Kansas Department of Agriculture, but he can correct me if I didn't quite get that right. And before Adam starts to present, he is curious. I'm going to put this poll up here. He's curious if you have seen him present on this topic before. So, so this will just kind of give him a sense of what specifically he should be covering and you know, how many people have heard him speak before, so he can know if it's a repeat or if it's a whole new audience. And Adam, I will tell you at this point, 72% of people say no. So it's a pretty large percentage are saying no, and I think I'll go ahead and end the polling. So Adam, it's a pretty new audience for you. So so I am going to turn it over to Adam to start speaking. And then after Adam speaks, we're going to have the Karen Blakesley will be speaking from the land of, or sorry, from the Kansas Value Added Foods Lab. Oops, I didn't share the results. Sorry about that. So, all right, I'm going to turn it over to Adam. Thank you so much for joining us today, Adam.
Thank you, Londa. Well, it's good to see. Sometimes, you know, you wonder if everyone's heard this before, and so I wanted to, hopefully it'll be fresh, and hopefully you'll get a lot of new insight today as we and answer any of the questions that come up for you. So we're going to focus today on direct-to-consumer food sales and talking about all the requirements that surround that. And we'll touch on a lot of areas because just like there are a lot of food products and a lot of recipes and formulations, there's a lot of variation in the requirements for those different types because they can have very different risk profiles. So they may constitute a much different risk for certain types of products versus others. So we'll talk about, of course, why we have food safety requirements, talk about how we go through and work towards compliance with those requirements, cover some license questions, some exemption questions, get into produce, which was good. A lot of y'all are doing produce, it looks like. So talk some on that and quite a few doing egg sales. So we'll cover some egg information as well. So of course we have food safety requirements because food can cause illness and it does cause illness frequently. So the most recent estimates are a little old. I'm sure the update was pushed back by COVID like many other things, but about 1 in 6 Americans could expect to encounter a foodborne illness. So quite a few of us on this call could expect to have a foodborne illness each year, annually. Now with COVID, an interesting side effect is that the numbers of illnesses reported have gone down significantly. So there could be a lot of reasons for that, but I find that to be interesting. But a lot of bad outcomes with foodborne illness and a cost to the economy in terms of dollars, lost wages, and all kinds of things. Of course, foodborne illnesses impact human beings, so I think it's important to keep that in mind. And your customers, your friends, your family could be impacted, and we just don't know when it's going to be a tragic outcome, like Lauren Beth's outcome, where she passed away. She was killed by E. coli from an undercooked hamburger many years ago now. I do think it's important to keep those stories in mind. Again, that's the real why of foodborne illness, food safety requirements. some other products and some other emerging pathogens and maybe some different things that folks don't commonly think of that are related to various foods. It could be hamburger, it could be peanut butter even. Lettuce, produce is, of course, unfortunately, a growing source of foodborne illnesses that we're learning about, but just a variety of terrible outcomes can be associated with food safety failures. We get a lot of questions about home canning, and people wonder why we have requirements around those, why they're so strictly controlled. And here's an example from not too long ago of potato salad. It was made from home canned potatoes that weren't processed properly and ended up with botulism developing and had 25 cases. All 25 went in the hospital and one person did pass away. So that was shared at a church potluck supper. And so it is super important. That's a very dangerous process. So canning is strictly controlled. Now, we do believe, of course, that no one wants to have foodborne illness. No one wants to cause a foodborne illness. There were a few criminals in the world, unfortunately, but the vast majority of folks want to have safe food for everyone. So as our purpose at KDA is to serve, promote, and grow the state's largest industry, which is, of course, agriculture, we take it to heart that it is super important how we get to compliance. How do we provide safe food? How do we facilitate our producers making safe products, offering safe products in the least burdensome way possible? So our approach generally can be summed up as educate, warn, and enforce. We want to make sure folks have the information they need to understand the requirements. If there's some issues, then we go into a warning and then enforcement as necessary. But of course, we don't like to do that, but we will do it if it's necessary as those things come up from time to time. We are looking at systems. We know every system can have failures, and our goal is to have good systems that when things do go wrong, when someone does have a bad day, those issues are corrected, they're identified and corrected before any harm comes. And of course, we love to speak to folks and answer questions and take care of problems in advance rather than through the regulatory process. So really encourage you to reach out, and our contact information will be available in a number of ways. You can reach out to us, and we'd love to talk with you. Now, we do get a lot of questions about the complexity of food safety. As I mentioned, there's a variety of different types of food products and even different recipes within various food products. And so I like to say fair and simple rarely meet, which means the more fair we try to make the rules, the more complexity is added. And so hopefully you keep that in mind, and you'll be understanding of, as we try to make it not just a general blanket rule for food, as we try to target the rules to the risk that each food product may present, that does add a lot of complexity. So as we go through the rest of the presentation, keep that in mind, that we're trying to be as fair as possible, and that does make it a little more complex. So of course, all of our authority to work on these areas is from the law. So this comes from state law, and we also work with federal laws. All these are available online if you want to read them for yourselves. If we ever tell you something that's a requirement and you want to read that for yourself, we can definitely point you in the right direction. But otherwise, we'd just love to have you ask us the questions. But those are available for you if you're interested, or if you're having trouble sleeping, of course, you can take a gander at those and probably be out like a light before too long. Now, I didn't get this into a poll question. I thought for the sake of time, we'd just go through it quickly. But a lot of times people maybe have not a full understanding of the complexity of even something as common as potato salad. And I think probably about the last thing on our minds today with the temperatures is a picnic, but there's hope out there that spring and summer is coming. And so think about potato salad. And what part of potato salad requires temperature control for safety? So I think everyone recognizes keeping the potato salad cold is very important at a picnic, but have we ever stopped and thought about why that is? So if we break it down into a couple of components, and as I've asked this question over the years, it came up that a lot of people don't even know what goes into potato salad anymore. But I'm sure that you all have a good understanding. So a lot of potato salad has eggs in it. And of course, those eggs, they're boiled eggs, they're ready to go for bacteria to grow. So those definitely require temperature control for safety. Some people put celery in, And it's a maybe. Most of the time, that's going to be an uncooked celery. And so that would not require temperature control for safety by itself. Potatoes, of course, and potato salad. And those are definitely a heat treated starch. Those are definitely a good media to grow bacteria. So we are very concerned about that. That's one of the main reasons that we keep potato salad cold. And then, of course, mayonnaise is in most recipes. And that's actually surprising to a lot of people, but mayonnaise by itself does not require temperature control for safety. And that's because of the acidity that's found in mayonnaise. Even homemade recipes have a lot of acid in there. So bacteria could be present if you were using raw eggs in a homemade recipe, and that could still make someone sick if there were salmonella present in those eggs, but the acidity would prevent that bacteria from growing. So by itself, mayonnaise does not require temperature control for safety. So if you keep that in mind, that something as common as potato salad can have a variety of different food safety concerns. So start off at the top here as far as licensing, which is the way that our program runs, is license fees support our activities. And the law sets out when a license is required. So basically, as it applies to a lot of farmers market operations, a food license is required when the product requires temperature control for safety. So if you're selling that potato salad, that would require a license, unless otherwise exempted. We'll talk about some exemptions. If you're selling to other business entities for use or resale, so if you're selling to a grocery store or a restaurant, if the product is going into those outlets, you will need a license. So those are kind of the main categories of licensure. And of course, as I mentioned, there are exemptions. So there may be times where at the first glance you would need a license, but there's other factors that would keep you from having to have a license. And one of those that's very common at the farmer's market is the sampling exemption. So in the law, it says that if you're offering a sample of your food product or a food product that would complement the sale of, say, knives or blenders, those kinds of things, you don't have to have a license if you are giving away a small quantity of food, not charging for that sample. And of course, with all of these exemptions, you're still required to provide safe food that's honestly presented. Another exemption that we often see impacting farmers market and similar direct-to-consumer types of sales is the 6-day exemption. And so the law says that if you are offering any type of food other than a specialized processed food, if you're offering any type of food for sale up to 6 days in a year, you're not required to be licensed. Now, there's some other things with partnerships and what's a person, but generally speaking, you're not going to be able to operate more than 6 days in a year without a license. No wholesale distribution, only direct to the end consumer. Doesn't cover meat processing as well. So if you have questions about meat, again, encourage you to tune in tomorrow for the Meat and Poultry Inspection Program's presentation. But basically, think of maybe grilling hot dogs, maybe breakfast burritos, and doing that 6 or fewer times in a calendar year. Again, you have to have safe, honestly presented food for any of these exemptions. Another exemption is a fundraising exemption. And so maybe a group would approach the farmer's market manager and want to set up a fundraising opportunity. And if you meet the requirements in the law and the regulation, you would not have to have a license for any number of days in a year to operate a food establishment, offering food directly to the end consumer for donations. So it has to be not a mandatory charge. It would have to be subject to a free will offering. And you can't use any of those funds to compensate food workers directly. Again, safe food, safe temperatures, good employee hygiene practices, cleaning and sanitizing all the equipment that's necessary. You also do, in this exemption, have to post a sign that lets the consumer know that the food establishment is not subject to a routine inspection. Didn't ask it specifically, but I imagine there's probably a honey producer or two out there. there are two quick honey exemptions I'll call out. One is if you are keeping an apiary and you're gathering the honey and you're not doing anything beyond the bulk extraction of the honey, and then you're offering that to a licensed business for further use of processing, that does not require a license. Again, the honey needs to be handled in a sanitary fashion and offered honestly presented. Also, the honey does fall under their direct-to-consumer exemption that we'll talk about more in depth here in a second. So honey does have some direct exemptions as well. Now, the main one that we see at the farmers market and similar types of outlets is the direct-to-consumer exemption. Sometimes I like to call that the D2C. It's kind of a play on the B2B theme. But under the state law, no license required if you're producing a food for sale directly to the end consumer that does not require temperature control for safety or specialized processing. So the key points, again, no specialized processing such as canning, as we talked about with the green beans or the potatoes in that example from the potato salad earlier. But no specialized processing among those things. You have to have safe sanitary food, and no wholesale distribution. So no sales to other stores or other business entities or restaurants. So some of the foods that are allowed under this exemption, some prepared foods, baked goods generally, candies, jellies, some formulations. Again, there's a wide variety of these different products. Some of these do have special requirements. That K-State guide that was mentioned earlier, I think there was a link in the chat. That's the best resource to really dive into all these types of food products and the categories that they fall into. Fresh uncut produce is another one that's just exempted from any license requirements. And then lots of other products. And folks ask if there are changes every year, and we haven't had any change to the requirements, but what we do see is the innovation among producers and coming up with new products and new variations on products. And they ask those questions, and then we have to make determinations. So the more products and the more questions that we get in, the more our knowledge base builds on what products fall into what category. Some foods that we see commonly that are not allowed because they have higher risk levels, they aren't subject to this exemption. So if they require temperature control for safety or specialized processing, so a lot of dairy products will fall into this category. Cut leafy greens that are cut beyond the initial harvest cut melons, canned vegetables, those types of things. Also can't sell to other businesses, of course. So all those do require a license. Some of the products may fall into a special in-between category that we talk about, and it says this product may fall into one or the other, and we need to make a determination of which category that is. And so Karen's going to talk here in a bit about the services that are offered by the Kansas Value-Added Foods Lab, and one of those services would be a product evaluation. So they're going to be able to take these products and determine which category those fall into. And then we might end up in an exempt category, or you might end up in a category that requires a license, and then you get to make you can make that decision for your business what would make the most sense. So just a variety of products that have come in over the years that we've asked questions on, and so you can see some of these fall into the exempt category, some of these fall into the license required category. So you can see a wide variety of products that we deal with. I mentioned, and I'll say it again, it bears repeating, that all of our requirements, you have to have safe food when you present that to the consumer. And that's the goal, keep food safe and then also keep extra stuff out. So leveling the playing field in the marketplace is another thing that's important, so that you folks that are complying with the requirements and offering safe food and presenting things honestly have fair competition with other folks who are having to meet those same standards. So let's talk about some of the exempt food requirements. So if you're using the 6-day exemption or the fundraising exemption or the sampling exemption even, you still need to be aware of critical food safety temperatures, and those are set forth in the Kansas Food Code. And then hygiene and sanitation of employees and your equipment are covered in regulations. We've kind of boiled those down distilled them into their essence to make it a little easier. So temperature zone, we have handouts and educational materials available on our website, or you can request it. We can get those out to you to set those temperatures. Maybe you're cooking hamburgers as a sample, or doing the 6-day exemption at the farmer's market. You need to be aware of cooking those to 155 degrees Fahrenheit for 17 seconds. And if maybe you're sampling chicken, you make sure that that's handled appropriately and cooked to 165 degrees. As far as sanitation and hygiene requirements, employees are linked to the leading cause of foodborne illness in the United States as a norovirus. So transmitting that when they're ill, have certain symptoms like diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, jaundice, all those fun things to talk about during a lunch hour. Preventing bare hand contact with ready-to-eat food is a key intervention to prevent that illness. A lot of germs that you can't see live in poop. That's just the reality of it. So being aware of that, preventing that contact with gloves after proper hand washing, keeping ill employees away from food, and proper hand washing, can't say that enough, proper hand washing. So how do we get to proper hand washing? Seeing your ABCs twice. There's a lot more hand washing awareness in the world nowadays with COVID, but how do we get that hand washing into the farmers market type of locations? And there's a variety of ways that you could accomplish this. The key points are hands-free flow of warm water, and that you're catching that water and disposing of it properly, and you have soap and paper towels. So you can get creative with that. If you have knives for cutting samples and you want to not have just an extra supply of those, or you drop one on the ground and you need to clean and sanitize, or you're going to a higher level of something like cooking the hamburgers under the 6-day exemption, you'll need to be planning to clean and sanitize your utensils, your knives, your spatulas, any containers that you might have on site. So either need to take those home and have a working supply with you, or set up a temporary tub, could be an option for you, a 3-tub system, wash in hot soapy water, rinse in hot clean water, and then typically you'll use a chlorine solution for that sanitizer step after everything's nice and clean and rinsed. Make sure that all the water is potable, it's drinking water, and it'll be suitable for your hand washing and for your ware washing. And then disposal of those wastes is important as well, to make sure those get into the sanitary sewer. We do get a lot of questions in the farmers market about adequate protection from the environment, and it varies based on conditions and the type of operation. So some folks need to have a fully enclosed trailer. Maybe that's easy, everything is right there. Other folks may be able to get away with just some overhead protection, and then just realize that subject to different weather conditions, you may need to adapt or even stop operating for a given time. Jump over to labeling now, and part of that honestly presented to the consumer. So if you have products that are required to be labeled, if you're offering it in packages, maybe you're licensed and need to have some information on labeling, which again is something that the Kansas Value Added Foods Lab can help with. But some general things: what type of food it is, what's in the food, how much of the food you're offering, who's responsible for the food, and then any food allergens, of the major food allergens that are present. You may hopefully get big enough, or if you have a special claim like low sugar or something like that, you may need to get into the nutrition information labeling. And again, our goal there is to have the consumer to get honest information and make good informed decisions. So let's jump over to license types. If you are required to be licensed, we have 2 license types for food. One's a food establishment. This covers the direct to the end consumer sales of those foods that are required to be licensed, either temperature control for safety, specialized processing, or you're just doing it to order for more than 6 days in a calendar year. Or food processor license is the other type of license, and that's for wholesale sales. And we do allow folks to get licensed in their private home. Part of that is the understanding that to have the privilege of the license requires inspections of the license during reasonable business hours. So We are willing to let folks get a license in their home. It does need to be a separate kitchen from personal use kitchens. Has to be properly equipped for the type of product and process that's being done, and have good separation and storage areas. And I showed this a couple of pictures here, that historical photos from Kansas of an individual that was operating out of a kitchen that was not licensed, and it was in his home, and the storeroom there is by his bed. So not everybody has the same understanding of sanitation, hygiene, and those types of things. And that's one of the things that we do. We act as the consumer's eyes and ears in places that they wouldn't necessarily normally go. We do encourage people to consider, as they're getting started in processed types of foods, to look and see if there's maybe a shared kitchen option. Show an example of a commercial kitchen, and it's got all the equipment that's set up, and it's very nice and neat, and it's purpose built. It doesn't have to be a purpose built kitchen for our uses. It just needs to be adequate for that process and that procedure. Key point, if you do find a shared kitchen, is if your operation is required to be licensed, each operator would have to have its own license in that facility. So we have many shared kitchens around the state that have multiple licensees in those kitchens, because each of those operators is required to be licensed individually. So jump over to produce. Yeah, a lot of you are doing produce sales. So if you're doing uncut produce, unprocessed produce, not direct to the end consumer, there's no license required for that. Now, if you're getting into the wholesale market, you may have heard of the produce safety rule. And that, if you're a larger entity, you'll get a direct coverage. Smaller entities may fall into this qualified exemption. There's a lot of details with this. And basically, I'd summarize this to say, reach out to us. We'll connect you with Carly Tyler from our office. You can walk you through the produce safety requirements for wholesale production of produce. And you can see some numbers there of when different trigger points are. So it's complicated. There's a flow chart, and it's a federal law that's been in place for a while now and started to ramp up. And so really want to be available for you if you need help walking through that new world. Jump over to eggs now and cover these. We see a lot of farmers market vendors with eggs being in the small flock exemption or the very small flock exemption. And then some people do fall into the license categories. So if you have more than 250 hens in the flock, or you want to sell graded eggs, or you want to sell to a restaurant or grocery store, which does require graded eggs, then you would need to go ahead and get the egg license. It's $5 a year, and then pay the inspection fee on each dozen. But if you're in the small flock, 51 to 250 hens, you can sell those eggs directly to the consumer without a license. They're ungraded. The eggs need to be cleaned and washed, packaged, and labeled as ungraded. You can reuse the cartons if you obliterate all other markings on them, if you're reusing from a commercial source, and then make sure those cartons are clean, visibly clean, and keep the eggs refrigerated. If you have 50 or fewer hens, you don't have any requirements if you sell ungraded directly to the consumer. But we do recommend that you follow those very small flock requirements, because that's sort of where the standard of care is set in the marketplace. But you are not required to do that by state law. If you are going to keep your eggs refrigerated, if you're exempt and you decide to go ahead and refrigerate, or you're not exempt and you need to refrigerate, keep in mind your supply refrigeration as well as your distribution refrigeration, and keeping the eggs at 45 or less. And it can be a variety of equipment that may work for your particular operation. If you do have to have a license, as I mentioned, sorry about that, my PowerPoint just quit. If you do have a license, we'll just probably coast it on in here anyway. If you do have to have a license, it's $5 per year. And then each egg carton is required to be labeled with the egg stamp, unless you pay a quarterly fee. And the egg stamp is $18.70 for a roll of 1,000. And that will cover 1,000 dozen eggs. or you can pay quarterly fee. The minimum is $15 a quarter for that. And some customers would just not like to have those egg stamps on there, and then you could do the quarterly fee and not hassle with that. Break-even point's around 750 dozen per quarter. If you are under 750 dozen per quarter, you would probably be the most cost-effective to use the egg stamps. If you are over 750 dozen per quarter, it's more cost-effective to do the quarterly reporting and that $15 minimum. Or if you're getting into some larger volumes, then you have to do what the actual per dozen is. It's 0.03 cents per dozen. So 3 cents per 1,000 dozen, basically, or $3 per 1,000 dozen. So I think that's about all that we'll just, oh, thanks for pulling that up. We'll make sure that I've covered everything. 1870 for 1,000 dozen. There's also a blank stamp. That's another good point that I neglected, is you need to make sure that the stamp covers what's in the carton. So some retailers will downgrade and they'll do a B medium and make sure that everything's, it will definitely be above that. But if you want to target it, make sure that everything in the carton has the, meets the standards within tolerance for the size and the grade that's there. If you want to vary it up, there's a blank stamp. If you want to use duck eggs or quail eggs, those are blank stamps that you can just write duck or quail on. And then for chicken eggs, you could do a carton for whatever you need at that point. So the blank stamps could be an option for you as well. Next slide, please. Quarterly, here's the dates. Again, 15 per quarter. Next. And as I mentioned, so there's a graph. I've had fun with this graph. Next slide. Yeah, 700, you're probably going to want to go with stamps. More than that, the quarterly fee comes into play and becomes more cost effective. Next. If you do need help grading, the best resource is the egg grading manual. I think it's pretty straightforward. Once you get in there, it's not too complicated. Just as you get more experience, you can understand how those grades and just get faster at it. But the basics are pretty straightforward with that. So as I mentioned, only you can use the blank stamps for the non-chicken eggs. Next. So that's about it. As you're planning for your delivery models, there's some different options out there. Delivery's big. So this is one from a number of years ago that was doing some delivery. And we got to work with them, try to get them into compliance. Keep your customers in mind and understand the necessary condiments that they may need. Next. And here's a large scale roadside barbecue. So not a good way to utilize your product, but this is something else that our program does work with, is transportation disasters involving food. Next. This used to be in Kansas used to be a common drinking cup place as the rest of the country was, and so just remember that it used to be common sense for that, and you've learned and gotten better than that. So common drinking cup, would not recommend it. I'm glad that it's now not allowed. And next. So that's all that I have at this point. Be happy to answer any questions. I think we have some probably coming in the Q&A, and we'll get to those. If you have questions you think of later, definitely reach out to us, our website, our email, or by phone. We'd be happy to help you out.
Great, thank you so much, Adam. I think we're going to go ahead and ask some of the questions that were in the QA. A lot of great questions were coming in, and some of them I just felt more comfortable having Adam answer. So Adam, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them or if someone can read them out to you as well.
Yeah, just getting over to that. So I guess we'll just start at the top here. Baked goods with peppers. Those would be, unless there was a full product evaluation, those are going to fall into the category of license required. When you heat treat a vegetable, it releases the nutrients and allows the bacteria to have access to those, and they can grow. Next question is flour jelly. So that is a good question. Probably the best thing is to go through the product evaluation on that, because typically like a dandelion, honeysuckle, those are all going to be what we call low acid food. They're not very acidic. So we need to look at the formulation and the specific recipe and see where those end up. So the hens on the total on the hens of the property of production and personal flock. Yeah, I think if you did have a separated, just what was offered for sale versus what's family use, if you're clear about that separation, that would be fine. So 50 hens for the flock for productions for direct to consumer sales of the ungraded eggs. I think that would fall into that category. Or if you wanted to just, if you're at 70 total, you could be in the small flock exemption and just use the requirements of there with the refrigeration and the washing. And then a room is part of the agritourism experience. So depending on, we do have also the lodging program, and those exemptions there's some exemptions for fewer than 4 rooms, sleeping rooms, and fewer accommodations for fewer than 8 people. So if you're under that, you're not required to be licensed. You just need to provide safe sanitary lodging for people. If you're above that, then a license would be required, a lodging license. So yeah, so
Go ahead. I was going to say, Adam, when you're done with the egg question, then I think we're going to move to the next speaker, but are you finished with the egg question? Sorry about that.
I'll do this one last one on the very small flock, 50 or fewer hens are allowed to sell unwashed eggs at the farmer's market. So we'll see what other questions come in and address those as we have time.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for asking good questions. I'll just say too that Adam mentioned, that publication that we put out every year, we update it every year, and how we update it is based on your questions. So when you send us questions like that, then we maybe we just haven't got that question yet, if you can sell jams with flowers in it, for example. So yeah, we appreciate you asking that, and then we can get it documented for other people that might have the same question in the future. So Adam will probably answer some questions during while Karen's presenting, and then we might have time at the end for more live answers with Adam. But I want to turn it over to Karen Blakesley of the Kansas Value Added Foods Lab. She is the newly assistant director of the Kansas Value Added Foods Lab. And we wanted to just give everybody a chance to get to know her and know a little bit more about what the Kansas Value Added Foods Lab can provide to food processors and producers. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen, and Karen, you can take it away.
All right. Thank you, Londa. Let me get my presentation up and rolling here. All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. Most of you know about the Kansas Value Added Foods Lab, and if you've been working with us in the past, you probably know Dr. Aramoni. He retired in August of last year after 30 plus years with K-State and with working with this program, and we wish him well. We miss him, but we wish him well, and we are carrying on. So I was appointed as the assistant director to the lab the 1st of November. Our interim director is Dr. Jeanette Thurston, and she was not able to be with us today, but I primarily run the lab, and Jeanette really helps me out with higher level issues when they come up. So I just want to give you a quick overview about the lab and what kind of services we can offer. So we are staffed with undergraduate students. I currently have 7 students in the lab. We have 2 that are going to be graduating in May. If you've talked to the lab before in the last 3 or 4 years, you've probably talked to Sammy Fisher. She is one of our really great students who's our student manager, and she is one that's going to be graduating in May. So we did hire 2 new students this semester to start getting them trained. We do partner with the Kansas Department of Agriculture, and we greatly appreciate their support and the funding. We work a lot with the From the Land of Kansas program with Janelle and her folks in the program. It's a great way for you guys to get some support with the From the Land of Kansas program. Regulatory support also is one thing that we truly appreciate with KDA. If you are a member of the From the Land of Kansas program, we are now offering a 30% discount on many of our services that we offer. So if you're not a member of the program, click on that link, get a hold of Janelle Dobbins, and she will be happy to sign you up. They offer a lot of services, even helping you sell your products, and business advice and marketing and things like that. And so we work with a wide variety of people like you, from farmers market vendors to many established companies. So for small food processors, those that are requiring to follow the regulations put out by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, that's what we do. That's what our lab helps do, is help you with those kinds of products. If you are a small meat processor, which I know will be covered tomorrow, Dr. Liz Boyle in the Animal Science Department in our Meat Science program, she handles all of those types of products. So if you're someone that's wanting to sell jerky, meat jerky, she's the person you need to talk to. And because you will have to follow some USDA rules and regulations for those kinds of products. So any kind of meat products, please contact her. There's her email and her phone number for those kinds of products. As Adam mentioned, we do nutrition facts labeling. We will get your formulas. We will ask you a lot of questions. We will require a lot of information from you in detail. So we can help you with that. And this program that we use, it's a software. It's approved by the FDA, and we will create for you an FDA approved label. We are currently working with our process authority down in the University of Arkansas. When Dr. Aramoni left, retired in August, he was our sole process authority. And so right now we are working with Dr. Morawicki at the University of Arkansas. He's been a great help to us, and for the time being, that's who we will work with, and he will be, if your product requires a processing authority, he will help you with the documentation and to send you that letter. So the kinds of product testing and other things that we do are listed here. I want to show you a quick little video that we put together to help give you an overview of the lab, and you can see inside some of the things that we do.
My name is Karen Blakesley, and I am the new Assistant Director for the Kansas Value Added Foods Lab. And my role in the lab is to oversee our students and the day-to-day operations that we do in the lab, and also work with clients one-on-one when I need to. Work with our nutrition labeling software and pricing that we need to charge for people. So there's a variety of things that I do to help run the lab. So we work with a variety of clientele across Kansas, from a person that wants to sell a product at a farmer's market. There are some rules and regulations that they need to comply with, to larger food companies who need some expertise and some testing done on the products that they make. You know, the types of products that we get in range from baked goods like cookies or muffins or something like that, even to a variety of sauces. Barbecue sauce and salsa is very popular. We've also done mustards and lots of spice mixes and things like that. So it's really a wide variety of products that we get in. So before you send us any of your information or any of your products, please contact us either by phone or by email. And that way we can walk through with you what you're wanting to sell and that way we can get the proper information from you. Another good resource to look at if you're really unsure on what you need to have done is by looking at our direct-to-consumer publication for food products. This is for anything that you want to sell, like through a farmer's market, or if you're selling products off of a website, or a lot of people want to sell things through Facebook. So let's get you on the right track and read through that publication, and we can work with you on that too to make sure you know what needs to be tested and if you need a nutrition label or not. So there's a variety of services that we can offer to our clients. One of them is doing nutrition facts labeling. We can create a label that truly reflects the product that they want to sell so that it complies with the FDA rules. We also will get samples of their products in so that we can test them. For example, for the acidity, which is measured with a pH meter. We also check for water activity to determine how much water is within the product. That can affect the shelf life of a product. We can also check for sodium content to see how much sodium is in there, and so that we reflect that properly on the nutrition label. We can also check for moisture content, which also affects what the label says too. What a recipe starts with and what it ends with, if you're making cookies, it's going to be two different moisture content. So that's a few of the things that we can do. Some more advanced things that we can do is doing shelf life testing, which would also involve doing microbial work on the product. We could do sensory analysis work with the products to see, acceptance that consumers would like, if they like it or not. So there's some basic things that we do, but then there's also some more advanced tests that we can run. So if you're a client and you would like to have us help you with your food products, there are some things that we need to have you fill out for information. We do have a form on our website that will ask you for your name and address, the types of products that you want to send to us, and then we will also ask for your formulas or recipes. It's another name for that. And really specific detail on those ingredients that make up your recipes. So brand names of the ingredients, what the ingredient list is for that particular product. For example, if it's ketchup, what brand of ketchup are you using and what are the ingredients in that ketchup? Even better would be the actual specification sheets for those products, which details the nutrient content in that, not the nutrition facts panel. That's different. What we need is the list of nutrients that are in that product. So that specific information really helps give us the ability to give you a really accurate nutrition label. So detail is important, is I guess my point on that. We will also ask for you to give us your formula in weight. That could be either in grams, kilograms, or even in pounds and ounces. It's a more accurate reflection of the ingredient amounts that you're using in your recipes. So we want that in weight. So once we receive your information and your products, how long does it take for us to get results back to you? On average, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks. It really depends on what tests we have to do and if there's any follow-up tests that we have to do. It also kind of depends on the volume of products that we're getting in. Sometimes we get a lot all at once, and sometimes we only might get 1 or 2 a week. So we can keep in touch with you to make sure that you know the progress that we're making on your products. We're always open to suggestions and comments, so please let us know if there's some information that you need to know about. Please don't hesitate to ask questions. We want to make it easier for you and to make our service better for you.
All right. That just gives you a little brief look into the lab and what we can do. Let me finish up with a couple things here. We have a couple new publications which you can find directly on our homepage of our website. And Londa helped us put these together. One is talking about selling safe canned foods in Kansas. We also worked with Adam on these publications. And then also food labeling. This one's also in Spanish if you need that in Spanish. So those are a couple new ones. We are going to be working with KDA to develop some more educational materials and hopefully do some webinars such like this to put more education out there for y'all to make you better informed on and what we can help you with. I also want to mention that our Liz Boyle, Dr. Boyle, is offering some HACCP workshops if you need HACCP training. One of them is actually next week. So this is, you can contact Dr. Boyle directly about these if you'd like, but this is the website on our animal science webpage in the meat extension meat science program. And you can see others that are available later in the year. But if you're needing HACCP education, this is a great program for you to attend. And then I also want to mention in our community development program that we offer what we call First Friday e-calls. This is a great webinar series for entrepreneurs. If you're just getting started doing a business and just really need help, there's lots of resources out there, and this is one of them. And these happen on the first Fridays, I think at 9:30 in the morning, and first Friday of each month. So take a look at those. This is part of our community development and entrepreneurship program, and maybe you can pick up some good education there too. Again, this is our contact information. Please call us or email us directly, and we'll do whatever we can to help you get off the ground and get your business going and get your foods tested and make sure they're safe. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. All right, I'm done.
Great. Thank you very much, Karen. And I know it's 3 minutes to 1, so some people might have things to do at 1 o'clock, but some might be able to stay a little bit longer. Adam has been doing a great job of answering questions while Karen was presenting. So there's a number of questions you can read in the Q&A. You'll be able to read the answers to the questions that Adam's been answering. Karen, maybe just one really quick question. Can you just clarify on your pricing? Somebody mentioned like $150 in her Q&A, but I think $150 is for a full scheduled process, not just for testing. So if you just want to get like water activity tested, I believe it's maybe $15. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. If it's just a single test, like getting your pH tested or your water activity, it's only $15. But if you need to get all of, the water activity, pH, moisture, sodium, and those kinds of things, then it's $150.
Great, thank you.
And we are working on developing our client form into an online form so that it's available that way. Trying to make it a little more user friendly.
Great. Thank you very much, Karen. And thank you so much, Adam, too. And again, thank you all for your great questions. I think everybody benefits from the questions that you ask because other people have those questions too. And so Adam, thanks for answering all those. I just want to make a really quick announcement. I just put in the chat. So a number of you, I know 91% I think said you're also selling produce. We do have a number of produce safety resources available there in that website. We do have in fact, a special 1-hour session that'll be very similar to this that'll be coming up on March 5. So, there'll be 1 hour just on produce safety. So if you're interested in learning more, you can register on that website that I put in the link in the chat there for that. One other thing I'll just mention, just so that you know, K-State, actually, some of the students at K-State are working on an app, like our website, to help that publication that we've been putting in the chat, the regulations publication we're working on, getting that into a more searchable form, kind of like an app. It's a website, but anyway, hopefully that will be coming in the future. We don't quite have it ready yet. The students have been doing a great job, but you know, they have other things to do too. So they've been doing a great job, but hopefully we'll have that available for you very soon. And I am going to turn it over to Janelle Dobbins, and she is going to wrap this up. But I really want to appreciate Adam and Karen for speaking today. And again, appreciate all of you for asking really good questions that I'm sure a lot of people had those questions that you asked. So thanks for joining today. Stay warm, everyone, and I'll turn it over to Janelle.
Thanks, Londa. Adam, you had marked that there was one question you actually wanted to answer live about farmers market and radish. Is that correct, Adam?
Yes, because I clicked the wrong button, but I'll go ahead and do it real quick. So horseradish, I'm going to have to look into that, Bruce, and get back to you once we figure that one out, because that's one that hasn't come up, believe it or not, yet.
Okay, thanks, Adam. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We wanted to let you know at the conclusion of the webinar series, so on Friday afternoon, you will be receiving an email from us with a link to the evaluation survey. To assist our team in planning the future ones of these, if you could finish and send that evaluation back to us, we would really appreciate it, because when you list things on there of questions you have or things you would like covered, that definitely helps us plan other webinars and other features that we might talk about. As a reminder, you will also receive a link to all of the recordings next week. So if you are signed up and you have to miss one of the days this week, don't worry, you will get recordings to all of those. And then I think it's also been being asked in the Q&A, but if you had marked that you were getting scales certified, you will be receiving an email that has all the information on that. And as a reminder, if you still need publications and you didn't sign up for them, let us know. Reach out to us via email. You can send it to fromthelandofkansas@ks.gov or give us a call at 785-564-6759. And otherwise, we will hope to see you all tomorrow or later in the week for more of these, and enjoy your afternoon as hopefully the temperature still keeps going up a few degrees. See you all later.